Protests are taking place in multiple cities as demonstrators call to lift stay-at-home orders and reopen the economy. Americans are debating how and when that should happen. And joining us right now to talk more about that is Barry Sternlicht. He's the chairman and CEO of Starwood Capital Group, which has $60 billion under management. He's also the chairman and CEO of SH Hotels and Resorts. And Barry, which side of this debate do you come down on?
I was on your show about a month ago, March 13th, in the beginning of the crisis. I said it was going to be World War III for 3 months. We're like 5 weeks into that. It's looking like World War III. But, I said I was the optimist. I was the opposite of Mohammed Al-Arian. I basically said that, this was a flu. It's obviously a flu. We can see the pattern around the world. It goes away. I said rates are really low. It's a tax cut for consumers and for businesses. It'll help the economy. Now you've had a crash in oil commodity prices, also a tax cut. Gasoline prices are $1.81. Stimulus, Kevin O'Leary mentioned 13% of GDP here, almost 19% in Japan. And we're overstimulating the economy, so that will get us going again. And then medical breakthroughs was another big positive for me that I thought if you're an optimist, you say we'll have a vaccine, whether it's 12 months, 15 months, 18 months. So it's really only a question of the slope from here to there. So what's the slope look like? Depends on how we reopen the economy. And I think we actually have to open the economy. We have to do it zip code by zip code, let the mayors help, let the governors do their job. And I think people at risk should stay at home. We should social distance. And we can look around the whole world today to see best practices around the world on how to do this. Last night, there was a call among several real estate executives that have been asked by the Trump administration to help with the opening. And what we decided we ought to do as a group was come up with the best practices of reopening sectors of the real estate industry, like the apartment sector, obviously for me, the hotel sector, even the retail sector. David Simon was on the call from Simon Property Group. We don't really have to wait for the government. We should actually come up with our best practices sector by sector because we know the nuances of our asset classes. And I think we can open up, and I think we should open up, and I think America wants to open up. So I actually couldn't disagree more with Kevin O'Leary, your prior guest, on a number of points, but we can talk about that if you ask me another question.
Well, let me just ask you off the start, Barry. I think you're probably right. If we get a vaccine in 18 months, fantastic. If it's 12 months, even better. It's just the question of the slope between here and then what kind of carnage is created by the deepness of that damage in between now and then, too. You said we should open up zip code by zip code, which makes a lot of sense because not everywhere looks like the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area. But that seems like that would be particularly problematic for something like the hotel industry because how do you know that the people who are coming there, I mean, just me as a consumer, you can open up. But the question is, do I feel comfortable coming there thinking that am I protected? Am I going to be staying in a room that someone who came from one of these areas just came from? How do you kind of play that out? How do I feel like I should be comfortable and that things are going to be clean? Because that's a big issue.
Absolutely, it's an issue. So that's why we kind of need a green housekeeping seal of approval on the hotel stay. So you know that the hotel has adopted best practices. We have our cleaners, our housekeepers are cleaning the room to the appropriate standard. We could even temperature test guests as they arrive. I think the hotel industry yesterday, I think it was the Wynn Corporation, Matt Maddox, put together like a 32-page booklet on how to open a casino. And if you can do it in a casino, you certainly can do it in a regular hotel. But I think the hotel industries will come back with the transient business first and the large group houses second and later. And I think car drive-to hotels that are on the roadside, they will open first because people get in their cars before they get in planes. But they will return to normalcy. So you're really just arguing about the slope and how fast do we get back. And I think, you can lay bets down as an optimist buying stocks and debt securities if you think we're going to get back to some semblance of normalcy and how fast. And if you get a drug, a medical breakthrough in the interim between now and the vaccine, then the market, as one guest pointed out earlier, should do better faster. But the front of the market, this market's is a little ahead of itself. I've been very optimistic that we'll get through this, and we will get through this. And I think the biggest surprise for me, at least for the last 5 weeks, has been the amazing spirit of the American people. I mean, people are out walking, kind, talking to each other, saying hi to the person who bags your groceries, and it is a really nice reflection on an economy and a people that really will. The power of the people will open the country, and we will do okay. My mom is 86. She's up in North Palm Beach. She's in her house. I talk to her twice a day. She's fine being home. She's bored. We send her packages and books, and I've taught her how to social media and FaceTime. But she'll be fine. And when it's safe for her to come out, she'll come out, and I'll make sure she comes out. But for now, she should stay in her house, and I'm ready to get back to work, as most of my team is. We're working, but we're working remotely.
Hey, Barry.
And we don't like it. We don't like it. We'd like to be in the office.
Barry, we all want to get back to work, and everybody's trying to come up with a strategy to get back to work. I'm a little worried that hope is not a strategy. Testing is a strategy. Having infrastructure is a strategy. Having real access to PPP is a strategy. And those things today and likely over the next 15 days are not likely to be in place. And so I just don't understand when we hear, especially from business leaders like yourself, that we all just need to get back to work when these things don't exist. No. And even when the statistics in certain markets would not suggest that we are coming down so rapidly that you would say, well, there's just no risk out there, so we should do it anyway.
I think there are people at risk. If you have diabetes, my son has diabetes, he should be super careful. My mom should not leave her house. I think the recovery rates and as you know, the mortality rate is lower than people thought, given that some people are apparently somewhat immune to the disease. There's so much noise in the market that 85 times the people in California have the disease than we think, or have been through it. So my brother's a doctor. The testing isn't the perfect answer either. There may be a second wave. Even if you test, it's not a perfect test. We should test as much as we can. But I also think there is a financial suicide and the death of companies and small businesses and restaurants and the economy and the global economy that has to be weighed against. We shouldn't force anyone to go to work. If people want to stay home, stay home. But those of us who want to take the risk and go to the office or go to the supermarket or open our restaurants or open our hotels, we're going to have to learn. I was talking to the CEO of one of the hotel companies the other day, I guess it was Friday, and he said, we're going to have to learn how to run hotels at 35% occupancy and then 55% occupancy. So the full service hotel will look like a limited service hotel. We won't have the restaurant open. It's interesting. You're going to see, Andrew, you're going to see an experiment. You're going to see what Georgia does, and you'll see New York come on much later and with a different set of protocols. So my call was to the industries. I wasn't saying we should open blindly. I was saying we should open with a set of best practices. You see the supermarkets open. If the supermarket is spacing itself, and I was at the Publix here in South Beach, with every 6 feet, then why can't you do that in a Gap store in a mall or at Macy's? I mean, you can do the same thing, and you may not call that a mission critical, but it's mission critical that Macy's and their 100,000+ employees get back to work. Otherwise, these companies will die, and you won't be able to reopen them. There'll be carnage everywhere, and you have to look at the social cost of that against the human cost, which I know is awful. But I also think you're seeing, in Florida, and my zip code is not good, but right next door, there's only 23 cases in the whole county. They can open, and they have to watch the results of opening. And yes, we may have to restaff the hospital. We shut it down, but we have to get going. We have to move forward. The cost is too great. The government cannot carry a $23 trillion economy. They can't do it. And the consequences of doing it would be awful. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Becky.
Hey, Barry, that's okay. Yesterday, the president was asked at the press conference what they've thought about extending liability protection to business owners. He said they haven't gotten the finalization on that. They're talking about it. They're considering it. But what would it mean to you if you reopened, if you didn't have that liability protection, and somebody gets sick at one of your hotels? Would you reopen without the liability protection?
No, it's super important. It was raised yesterday by these real estate leaders, and we all talked about it, and we do need that protection. Although I suppose we could have guests sign waivers when they come to the hotel, or the same thing as they enter a store. It'd be a little weird, but they could sign a waiver like they do at any other high-risk activity. We were talking about how we would open our offices and we would test our individuals. We had people with the regular flu come to the office, and we freaked out and thought we had people with corona, so the virus. So we shut the offices down, not because we had a corona virus, but because we had 2 people with flu that we misdiagnosed. So I think like hotels have to do what they need to do, and that's why we need to have all the industry leaders. We've been talking to say 50 different apartment executives, and with the cleanliness, the protocols, it's just going to be new, and it's going to be doable, and it should be done by sector. And one thing I also want to mention to Kevin O'Leary, I mean, the office markets are actually, people paid almost all their rent. 95% of our 40 million square feet of office paid rent on time. The only sector that really didn't as a group, and they did it selectively, was the shared office, the WeWorks and the Reguses. They actually used this as an opportunity to rationalize their portfolio and not pay landlords where they were losing money and enter negotiations. The apartments were 92%. We've been paid almost entirely, and you can only see like 3 or 4% of borrowers from Fannie and Freddie, from the two government agencies, have asked for forbearance and waivers. And retail is very spotty. It's all over the place.
Barry.
And industrial's fine.
Barry,
so.
you were, I thought the last time you were on, you were great. I mean, you know, hope might not be a strategy, but is panic a strategy? I don't know. I asked Ackman whether, you know, if you got to pick one or the other, panic is a strategy or hope is a strategy. Hope seems like a much better strategy. Joe,
I mean, we're going to come out of this, right? And you're going to have.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe not before November. That would be good for a lot of people.
You know, if you don't open the economy at some point soon, the damage will be severe and unrecoverable.
Right.
So I think, you know, my brother's a doctor. I have a mom who's 86, in great shape, but I want to see her live to 106. I just think we have to be, you know, smart about it, and I think we can be smart about it. And the country is showing that kind of resilience right now. I mean, I'm very comfortable in the country, and I will say there one thing about the market. I want to talk 1 second about the market. I mean, the market has been highly concentrated in the rally of the obvious, as Dan Loeb recently said in the conference call. You know, whether it's Amazon or the big tech stocks. The Russell 2000 has been lagging dramatically, so the broad market has not rallied like a dozen names that have really taken off. I think that's where the fallen angels. Those are the companies we're worried about. We're not really worried about Amazon. We're worried about everybody that Amazon is destroying, and whether they can come back or not will depend on whether we open the economy. It's plain and simple. I mean, every retailer cannot survive no revenue. And for how long? I mean, it's a trade-off, Andrew. I'm not unsympathetic, but there at least should be there's at least a moral argument to not destroying the net worth of Americans or the global economy.